Welcome to my channel, Physics Guru. If you have not subscribed the channel yet, please subscribe the channel now. In this video, we'll talk about the prefix conversion, and I will give you many examples, and at the end of the video, you should be feeling very comfortable. So let's get started. Here, I will start with an example here. Let's say I have 2 megabyte and I want to convert this 2 megabyte into byte. So how do I do that? So first thing, this M here that we call mega is called prefix. So we have to convert 2 megabyte into byte. So look here, mega. What does the mega here means? The mega means 10 to the 6. All right, the mega means 10 to the 6. So all you have to do is write down 2 times 10 to the 6 byte. So this is in the scientific notation. And now you can write down in terms of the zeros too. So what does the 10 to the 6 means? So this one, 10 to the 6 means 1 followed by 6 zeros. 60, and this is byte. And if you multiply 2 times 1, what do you get? You'll get 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 byte. That's how we converted 2 megabyte into byte. Most of the time, you do not have to do this calculation here. This is just for an example. So all you have to do is this one. The mega means 10 to the 6 byte. Now let's see another example here. Another example I have is, let's say I have 9 gigahertz. So do not worry about if you do not know what the hertz is. It's the unit of frequency. So how do I convert this gigahertz into hertz? So here, this G, which stands for the giga, is the prefix. And all you have to look here, what is this giga stands for? This G stands for 10 to the 9. So the way I'm going to do it here is 9 times this G. I'm simply going to convert this G into 10 to the 9. That's all you do. And then you have hertz. This is simply the G stands for 10 to the 9, and then I have hertz right here. And if you want to write down into the zeros form, so all you have to do is 9. 10 to the 9 means 1 followed by 9 zeros. Again, you don't have to do this. Most of the time, you only have to do this. So now if I multiply, so 9 times 1 would be 9, and then the rest, simply write down zeros. 9 zeros. And what's the unit will be? Unit will be hertz. So the idea here is just tells you this 9 gigahertz is in fact a big number here. 9 followed by 9 zeros here. Let's do another smaller numbers. So here I'm going to choose, let's say 100 micrometer. This one is called micro. This one is micro, and that's the prefix. Now look at the table here. What does the micro stands for? The micro stands for 10 to the negative 6. So how do I write down? All you have to do is 100 times the micro stands for 10 to the negative 6. So it's 10 to the negative 6 followed by meter. And the 100 here means 1 times 10 to the negative 10 to the negative 10 to the 2 times 10 to the negative 6 meter. And if I do the math, what I will get 1 times, I have 10 to the 2 and 10 to the negative 6. So if I add these two numbers together, what the number I will get? 10 to the negative 4 meter. Okay, and if you want to write down in the decimal form, how do you do that? Okay, let me give you a trick here. What you're going to do is you simply move forward 4 digits from this point here. So what I mean is 0.0001 meter here. So how did I do that? So I simply write down 1, and then after that I have to write down 4 digits, 4 zeros. So I wrote down 1, and then I wrote down 4 zeros here, and then after first zero I put the decimal. So that's a quick way to convert. Okay, so one more time. So first I'm simply wrote down 1, and then I wrote down 4 zeros, 1 2 3 4, and then here the decimal. Okay, so let me give you one more example here, and as I said, there will be plenty of examples. So this time again I'm going to consider a very small number here, 0.9 meter. So before I'm going to solve this problem, you will pause the video, do it by yourself, and check the answer. All right. Okay, so let's do it now. 0.9. So here the N stands for the nano, which is the prefix here. And what does this mean? This means 10 to the negative 9. So I'm going to write down 0.9 times 10 to the 9 meter. Okay, and as I said, most of the time you simply have to write down this way, but here I'm going to convert into the decimal form for your clarity. So I can write down this one as a 9 times 10 to the negative 1 times 10 to the negative 9 meter, because 0.9 means 9 times 10 to the negative 1. So this one will be 10, this one 10 to the negative 1 times 10 to the negative 9 would be 10 to the negative 10 meter. Now coming back to this one here, how did I solve it? I simply wrote down the number and moved 4 decimals. Okay, so if I just follow that trick, what would happen is it will be 0.1234560.9. Let me write a little bit more clear. 9. So how do I do that? I simply wrote down 9 and then 10 zeros, 1 3 3 6 3 9 10, and put a decimal here, and this one is my meter. Okay, so this in the decimal form. Okay, so I first convert it into the scientific form here. If you want to know more about the scientific form, watch my other videos. And then I wrote down 9 and moved the 10, write down the 10 zeros, and here is the decimal. Now let me give you more examples. All right, so I'm going to erase these things here so that I have a space. Oops. And then we'll do more examples. Most of the time you have to solve this way. For example, let's say you have 200 microfarad, which is the unit of capacitance. Okay, and you have to convert into farad. And now let's say you also have to convert into millifarad. Okay, so 200 microfarad you have to convert into farad and millifarad. The first thing what you want to know is what is this prefix stands for. The micro means 10 to the negative 6. So let's start. So here 200, again the micro means, what the micro means? It means 10 to the negative 6. So I'm simply writing 10 to the negative 6 farad. Okay, and make a habit of writing in the scientific notation. So the 200 means 2 times 10 to the negative 2 times 10 to the negative 6 farad. So you see the 2 times 10 to the negative 2 times 2 times 10 to the 2 means 200. And now if I do the math, 2 times 10 to the 2 and 10 to the negative 6. So if we add these two numbers together, 2 and negative 6, the number you will get is 10 to the negative 4. That's the farad. So here I converted first into this scientific notation. But my goal is to convert into now the millifarad. Okay, what does the milli stands for? The milli means, if you look here, the milli means 10 to the negative 3. So I have 10 to the 4, but I had need to convert into milli. So how do I do that? So I'm simply going to write down 2 times 10 to the negative 3. And let me do it this way. 10 to the negative 1 and 10 to the negative 4. The farad. Here it has to be negative 3 farad. Okay, so if I do this math together, 10 to the negative 1 and 10 to the negative 3, I will get 10 to the negative 4. So, and this math is quite straightforward. 2 times 10 to the negative 1, what you get? You will get 0.2. And 10 to the negative 3, 10 to the negative third. 10 to the negative third stands for the milli. So I'm simply going to write down milli for milli. This is the milli here, and that's the farad. So my number is 0.2 millifarad. All right. Okay. So now let me give you another example. Lots of examples. Here, let me write down here. And this one is a long one. So 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 4, 5. That's my hertz. Okay. And I would like you to convert, first write down in terms of the scientific notation, and then you have to convert into gigahertz, convert into, gigahertz, convert into and megahertz. Okay. Pause the video and try to solve by yourself. Now let's do it together here. So first, you see, you just choose 845 as 1 unit here. 1 unit. Okay. So I'm going to write down 845 as 1 unit. And you see how many decimals you have here? 3, 3, 6, and then 7. Include this one too. So I have 7 zeros. So I'm going to write down 10 to the negative 7, and I'm going to put the decimal here, and that would be my hertz. I simply wrote down in the scientific notation. Again, how did I do that? So if you have this kind of numbers, so I simply consider this one as a 1 unit. And how many zeros I have? 3, 3, 6, and 1, 7. So 10 to the negative 7, and I put a decimal here, and that's my hertz. And life becomes so easy afterwards. And if I have to convert into gigahertz, how do I do that? So what does the giga stands for? The giga stands for 10 to the 9. So I have to do a little bit math here. 8.45 times 10 to the negative 9, and I'm also going to use 10 to the 2 hertz. Why do I do this way? The reason is 10 to the negative 9 and 10 to the 2 makes it 10 to the negative 7. And now I have 10 to the negative 9. This means this is the giga. Okay. So I have to do this math here. 8.45 times 10 to the 2. So 8.45, if I multiply these two numbers together, so 10 to the 2 means I have to move the 2 decimal places here this way. So that would give me 845 times 10 to the negative 9 hertz, which is in fact 845 gigahertz. Okay. So converted the hertz into gigahertz. All right. So you see, if you have, that's the beauty of the prefix here. If you have to write down this way, you do not know, I mean, what this number stands for. But if I simply express in terms of the gigahertz, I have some sort of feeling. Okay, this is 845 the gigahertz. Okay, that's the unit of frequency. If you have a very high frequency, you express in terms of the gigahertz. All right. So now the next thing is writing down in terms of the megahertz. All right. So how do I convert into megahertz? So I'm using different colors here. Let's megahertz now. So already have this number here. And what does the mega stands for? The mega stands for, look here, the mega stands for 10 to the 6. So all I have cared about is 8.45 times 10 to the 6, and here it will be 10 to the negative 1. All right. So why did I wrote in this form? Because this is again 10 to the 1 and 10 to the negative 7 makes 10 to the negative 1, 10 to the negative 6 makes 10 to the negative 7. All right. And this 10 to the negative 6 stands for the mega. So I have to simply do this math here. So this math is 0.845. So 10 to the negative 1 means simply I have to move one decimal here. 0.845. And then this one will be 10 to the negative 6 stands for the mega. So it will be megahertz. All right. So let's do one more example, the last example. And that will be a long one. So let's do it here. I'm going to clear these things. And this is a really long one and made a little bit more complicated. So let's say you have this number 0.002000569 meter. All right. And you have to convert this into millimeter. You have to convert into micrometer, and you have to convert into nanometer. All right. So let's do it. What's the first step? The first step is you have to write down in the scientific notation form. Okay. So let's do these things here. The first, I'll consider everything here as 1 unit here. Everything here as 1 unit. So let's write it down. 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 9 as 1 unit. All right. And how many 0 I have? 1, 2, 3. So that will be 10 to the negative 3. But, and do not forget to add decimal here. If you do not put the decimal, that's, let me clear the, okay, yeah. So that is my meter now in terms of scientific notation. All right. So how do I do that? So first, again, consider this one as a 1 number here. So that's what I wrote. And then how many zeros I have? 1, 2, 3. So 10 to the negative 3. And then you have to put the decimal here. So this in fact means 2.000569. What is the 10 to the negative 3 means? 10 to the negative 3 means that's the millimeter. So I have now millimeter. Let me highlight this one so that you have one completed. That's in the millimeter format. And now I have to convert into the micrometer. So how do I do that? So micrometer here, let's come back to this point here one more time. Let me write down that number one more time. 2.123569. The micrometer, and this is 10 to the negative 3. What does the micrometer means? The micrometer means 10 to the negative 6. So I have to write something in terms of 10 to the negative 6. So how do I do that? Is this way. 2.123569 0.0000569. I'm simply going to write down 10 to the negative 6 times 10 to the negative 3. Why? Because if I look these two numbers together, that will be negative 3. All right? And that is in meter. So let me make a little bit of space here. I'm going to simply clear these things. So now it's much easier now. So 10 to the negative 6 means that 10 to the negative 6 is micro. And now you have 10 to the 3. What does 10 to the 3 means? That means you have to multiply this one by 1000. 10 to the third always means 1000. You see here 10 to the third here is 1000. Okay, so if I multiply this number by 1000, what I would get is this 2000, and then decimal would be here, decimal 569 times 10 to the negative 6 meter. So all I did is multiply this number by this number here, and I left this one as it is because this one stands for the micro. So if I do the math, what I would get is 2000.569 micrometer. So I converted in the micrometer. What's the last step? Is now to convert into nanometer. So let's see here. So I'm going to start here one more time. Let's start this number here. So I have this number 2000.569 times 10 to the negative 6 meter. If I have to convert into the nanometer, I have to write down in terms of 10 to the negative 9. So what I'm going to do is 2000.569 10 to the negative 9, and it has to be times 10 to the 3, right? Because these two numbers together, 10 to the 9 times 10 to the 6 is 10 to the negative 7. And this is the nanometer. So that means I have to multiply this number with this number. So 10 to the 3 means 1000. So I have to move 3 decimal towards the right. So if I multiply these two numbers together, this one and this one, so 2000 and 3 decimals here, 569 times 10 to the negative 9 meter. So that will give us 569 nanometer. So that's how I converted this into the nanometer. All right. So I hope you like this video. I hope you learned something from this video. So please, if you have any question, write down in the comment section below. And again, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe the channel. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful time.